Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving into a topic that sounds super boring, but is actually the secret engine of our government, the federal bureaucracy. Seriously, when you think of the government, you probably picture the president or members of Congress, but the people who actually carry out the laws, from delivering your mail to making sure your food is safe, are part of this massive system. We're talking about nearly 4.2 million unelected workers. It's so huge and powerful that some people call it the unofficial fourth branch of government. So, what do they actually do? Okay, so we have millions of people working for the government, but what do they spend their day doing? Their work boils down to three main jobs: implementation, administration, and regulation. First, implementation. This is the most important one. Congress passes a law, but laws are usually broad goals. It's the bureaucracy's job to turn that goal into a reality. For example, if Congress passes a law to improve highway safety, it's the Department of Transportation that has to implement it by creating new rules for things like guardrails and speed limits. Second, administration. This is the day to day stuff that keeps the country running. Think about the Social Security Administration sending out millions of checks every month, the U.S. Postal Service delivering your packages, or the TSA agents who manage airport security. That's all administration. And third, regulation. This is a big one. Bureaucracies create rules that manage how our economy and society operate. For instance, the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, regulates what ingredients are allowed in our food to keep us safe. These rules aren't laws passed by Congress, but they have the force of law. Now that we know what they do, let's look at who they are by breaking them down into five main groups. To make sense of it all, let's start at the top with the president's inner circle. These are the folks who have the president's ear every single day. First, you have the White House office. Think of this as the president's personal squad. It's a team of about 400 people, and their defining trait is 100% loyalty. The most important person here is the chief of staff. This person is basically the president's second in command, the gatekeeper who decides who gets to see the president and what issues land on the resolute desk. Another key player is the press secretary, who you can see at the podium in the briefing. They're the president's official mouthpiece or spokesperson. Crucially, these positions do not require Senate confirmation. The president can hire and fire whomever they want, no questions asked. Next, you have the Executive Office of the President, or EOP. This is a slightly wider circle of top advisors. Unlike the WHO, these folks must be confirmed by the Senate. Their job is to be the experts. They provide the president with the deep knowledge needed to make smart decisions. The most well known part of the EOP is the National Security Council, or the NSC, which includes top military and intelligence advisors who brief the president on threats around the world. All right, let's move on to the big guns, the cabinet. The cabinet is made up of the leaders of the 15 major executive departments, like the Department of War and the Department of the Treasury. These leaders are called secretaries, except for the head of the Justice Department, who is the Attorney General. They're all appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. These departments were each created by Congress and grew out of the first president, George Washington's, example of having key advisors to delegate important tasks. They have a very tricky dual role. They advise the president, but they also have to run these enormous departments and make sure federal laws are being implemented. When a president is picking their cabinet, they're looking for a few key things: shared ideology. They need someone who sees the world the same way that they do. A president who wants to expand environmental protections isn't going to pick a Secretary of the Interior who loves oil drilling. Expertise. It helps to have a background in the field. For example, it's common to see a retired general become the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of War now. Diversity. Ever since the 90s, there's been a big push for presidents to build a cabinet that, quote, looks like America, end quote, reflecting the country's diversity in race, gender, and geography. Additionally, cabinet members work like a hierarchy, and they have additional agencies that fall under their department's control. For example, the Department of Treasury sets broad policies that instruct lower agencies, such as the U.S. Mint or IRS, how to implement the law. Other key agencies within departments include the Coast Guard within the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI and DEA within the Department of Justice, or the Army and Navy within the Department of War, which is formerly known as the Department of Defense. Now we get into the biggest category, by far, independent executive agencies. This is basically the everything else drawer for the executive branch. These agencies are structured just like the cabinet department. Their heads are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. The only real difference is that they haven't been given that prestigious cabinet title. The perfect example is NASA. Its mission, space exploration, is super specific and doesn't really fit into any other department. It needs to be independent to focus on its scientific goals without getting bogged down in politics. Another great example is the CIA, or the Central Intelligence Agency, which operates independently to gather intelligence. Next up, we have the agencies that are designed to be the most independent from the president, the independent regulatory commissions. These agencies are the referees of the government. Their job is to regulate major parts of the economy and society, and to do that, they need to be free from political pressure. Here's how they do it. 1, bipartisan leadership. They are run by a board of commissioners from both political parties, not just one single head. And they also have fixed terms. Commissioners serve long, fixed terms, and the president can't just fire them if he disagrees with the decision. The Supreme Court backed this all the way up in 1935. These commissioners have some pretty awesome powers. They are quasi-legislative, which is a fancy way of saying that they can create their own rules and regulations. They're also quasi-judicial, meaning they can act like a court, judging and punishing those who violate their rules. You interact with their work every day. The Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, sets clean air and water standards. The Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, makes the medicine you take, make sure that the medicine you take is safe. And the Fed, or the Federal Reserve, they manage our nation's money supply to keep the economy stable. Last but not least, we have government corporations. These are the agencies that are run like businesses. While most government services are funded by your taxes, these corporations charge you a fee directly if you use their service. They often provide a service that you can also get from a private company, but the government offers a competing option, usually at a lower price. The two most famous examples are Amtrak, which provides passenger train services across the country, and the USPS, or United States Postal Service. Yeah, you can get FedEx or UPS, but the government provides a universal mail system that goes everywhere for everyone. So there you have it. The federal bureaucracy might be a giant, complex machine, but by breaking it down into these 5 categories, you can see how it all works together to turn laws into action. It's the engine that keeps our government and our country running every single day. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.